What does it take to be a good person? Is it praying to the Lord? Is it not committing sins? Is it realizing that we're all sinners? What's up, Dirty Nerdy Geek Squad? It's CJ back for another movie review right now. We're doing The Devil All the Time. It was directed by Antonio Campos, and it's got Tom Holland and the guy from Twilight, Robert Pattinson. He's gonna play the new Batman soon, which I'm gonna watch. Currently, my whole brain on that situation is hoping for the best. I'm a huge Batman fan. I love Batman. I've got hundreds of comics. I've got all kinds of Batman paraphernalia. But the whole Robert Patterson, I don't know his name. That kind of wigs me out. But I gotta say, throwing Twilight away. I'm throwing away. This is the movie I'm gonna base him on, and he was a good actor in this one. So fingers crossed, Batman is gonna be a good movie. Now on to The Devil All the Time. Woo! This movie right here, let me tell you. Everyone's got a southern accent. Everyone. It's set in the South. So, and it's like the rural South, small towns back in the 50s. So, that the South is, in there. You know what I'm saying? How do I describe this movie? How do I describe this movie? Oh, God. So this movie is all one cohesive story, right? It's one of those movies. Here we go. It's one of those movies that it's multiple stories that make one story. It's been a while since I've seen one made like this. A story based on this concept. And the few that I've seen, they were good. This is a really put together. It's very good. It's a very put together movie. It's a very put together story. I don't know why I just did that. Yeah, this was a great movie. It centers around this child who Tom Holland plays. If you guys don't know, he's the most recent Spider-Man and the most like Peter Parker. I've only seen the first movie with him in it, but I think it's the best Peter Parker I've seen in a long time, live action wise. And he's a good actor. He's young, but he's a very good actor. But it doesn't start with him. He's not even born yet at the beginning of the movie, and it all starts in this diner where everything kind of just shoots off from. But God, this movie, it's one of those movies that keeps you watching and keeps you entertained the whole time, even though so much of it wants you to just turn away and not pay attention and just be like, oh, I don't want to see that kind of thing. There's some the gore is not so bad, but the things that it represents outside of the gore is what gets you. And because it's set in the South, so much of it is based around religion, specifically Christianity, and it really puts a damper on things. I'm not a Christian per se anymore. I was raised Christian, but I haven't been in a long time. And this movie kind of sows those roots. You know what I'm saying? There's two preachers who end up dying in the movie. One of them is Robert Patterson. Robert Patterson, Uh, yeah, he plays a preacher who gets bored with life, I guess, and he likes to take advantage of young girls and then deny it. So he's a sick individual in this movie, to say the least. There's a couple terrible people. He's one of them. There's this couple who go around, they're just murderers. They're just serial killers. That's really all they are. And then there's Tom Holland's character, who kills a lot of people, but he doesn't kill anyone that doesn't deserve it, if that makes sense. He is justified in his killings. That's why at the opening I said, what makes you a good person? Because in my brain, no matter all the other things that were happening in the movie, all the other things everyone else did, and everyone was trying to justify this or justify that, and at the end of the day, Tom Holland is a murderer, regardless. He killed one person in cold blood. He killed 3 people in self-defense. So he killed 4 people. But at the end of the day, he's still a killer, which would get him locked up, at least in today's standards. But I'd say he's the hero of the movie, and I think he's supposed to be the hero of the movie, to be honest. With the way they portrayed it, I think that's the thing they're trying to point out. Be like, hey, you don't have to be a practicing Christian. You don't have to be doing this or doing that to be a good person. You just have to do what's right. And that's what he did the whole movie. He didn't have the best life. He had a pretty terrible life. But he always did what he felt was right. So I want to say what was good about the movie. Now the movie, it does a little bit of the time jumping, which gets super annoying in a lot of movies. Super annoying. A lot of movies do it, and they do it terribly. In this movie, they do it pretty good. They set everything up with the time jumping, so you don't get lost. Going from one time to another. They give you the backstory you need, so when they have to jump backwards, you know why they're jumping backwards. They set that up perfectly. Well, maybe not perfectly, but almost perfectly. They do a good job of it so you don't get lost, which is a big plus when you're doing the time jumps. Also, with the stories being told, it's like 2 or 3 stories told at a time at any given moment. There's like a couple different stories being told. They do a great job at it. Some movies cannot get this. Some directors, some writers, whatever it is, they cannot understand the cohesiveness you need to go from story to story to story, and then take all those stories and mash them together. So this movie does that very well, and I will give it mad props for that. I think it does that stuff super good. Alright, the next part is I'm gonna do, was this movie horror-tastic? Now, this is a weird in-between movie, I will say. This movie isn't quite a horror movie. This movie actually is a crime, drama, thriller movie, is what it's labeled. It's the movie type. So it's not technically a horror movie. However, I believe that with just a little ambiance change, they could have turned this into a horror movie without trying too much. But it wouldn't have a strict bad guy like most horror movies. It could have been like a new version of a horror movie, which would have been interesting to see, to be honest. They gave it just a little more spooky ambience. I think it would have done well that way. Now, I'm going to try to talk about what's wrong with the movie. Now, I rather enjoyed this movie. Between all, the stories, and they also did the voiceover narration very well. It's just sprinkled in there instead of it being all of what you get for backstory or anything. It's sprinkled in there. It seems like a lot, but it's not. And it's there to tell you what people are thinking since you can't read their minds. It's to make you understand their feelings more, which I think did very well. The part to me that felt off about the movie was it felt like it dragged on. Now, this is a quandary, to say the least, because the movie didn't drag on. Now, if you haven't seen the movie, when you watch it, you'll see what I mean. The movie feels like it takes like 6 hours to get through the entire thing. It's 2 hours long, which is a pretty long movie today. A lot of movies are cutting it down to like an hour and a half. But it's still not like the longest movie I've ever watched, by far. It's, what a movie length should be, in my opinion. I think all movies should be around 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something like that. It's weird though, because even though it keeps you drawn in the whole time, it keeps you like on the edge of your seat, and you're like, okay, what's gonna happen next? What's next? You feel like you're waiting. Yeah, you feel like you're waiting, and I don't know how to fix that per se. Cut down on the empty parts, because some of the empty parts are necessary. I can 100% see that some of the empty parts are needed there for the feel of the movie. But like, there's just some empty parts where you can cut down just a couple seconds here and there, and you'll get minutes over the whole movie where the timing, it's like something about the timing, it just makes you feel like the movie's just taking forever. It's also not helped by the fact that everyone, even though almost none of these people are like super southern, everyone has a southern drawl, so every time they talk it feels like they're talking forever. And now this is coming from a dude from the South, and I know a lot of you can tell a lot of my speech is very southern. But I don't know. Another thing that I felt was a little off was I liked the scenes where everyone died. It was cool, but maybe a little more realism in those scenes. I feel like they were cutting back a little too hard, because like dudes were getting shot in the head and like just leaving a pinhole, and there's blood on the ground, like, I'm not telling you to like make it super realistic and super gory, but maybe just a little more realistic would have helped that, like the factor of like, like, I think that would have helped a little. Alright, so who was my favorite character? My favorite character was Arvin. That's the character Tom Holland plays. He has this tragic backstory and a tragic rest of his life. It's all tragic. Everything's tragic that happens to him. But he does a great job at playing his character, playing the pain that he feels. You can feel Tom Holland feel it. The anger and the rage and the just wanting to do right, but learning a different way. You can feel it in Tom Holland. So there's that. I love it so much. I think he does a great job. My favorite scene, however, favorite scene. There's so many good scenes. Like the scene where at the end of the movie where he shoots the girl in the serial killers. That's a great scene. She has blanks in her gun, and you don't realize it. Did he die? Because like you're expecting everyone to just die in this movie, because people just start dying left and right. Someone does something wrong, they die, and that's kind of the point of the movie. If you do something wrong, if you're a sinner, if you're a bad person, you're gonna die. Now there were good people that died also that didn't deserve to die, but that's just part of life. Life is hard, and you only make it harder if you're a bad person. I think that's the idea of the movie. But luckily Tom Holland doesn't die. My favorite scene though is probably towards the end middle, like the back end of the middle of the movie, You'll understand what I mean when you watch it. Where he finally confronts Robert Pattinson's character, the preacher, who has already been doing all this ridiculous stuff and just, you know, made his sister, you know, hang herself. Spoilers. It's, you know, it's so rough, and you start to just gnaw your teeth at this dude, and then you come to find out he's married on top of it, and so he's much older than what originally you come to think. That like Robert Pattinson's character is maybe in his like 18 to 19, but then you start putting the pieces together, like, oh, he's married, oh, he graduated church college, oh, you know, he's got this life now. It's, you start to realize that he's like closer to my age kind of thing, and he's just sitting there taking advantage of like freaking children, and then just denying it and then throwing them away, and you just really start to hate him, to be honest. And oh god. And then the sister finally dies, and he gets his proof. He follows him, and he sees he's with another girl after his sister died. And yeah, he confronts him and then tells him his story. And that whole scene between them two, it's probably the best I've ever seen Robert Pattinson act, because he, you know, the dialogue is amazing, and I love it, and I love that scene, and I think that's the best scene in the movie, personally. Alright, fun facts time, you guys. This is everyone's favorite, right? Yeah, I know it's mine. Alright, so the first fun fact, and now watching this, this is a spoiler, so be prepared. I 100% was thinking this the whole time. Because again, like I said, you expect everyone to die, and I'm like, this is where he dies. Or this is where something goes wrong, or something bad happens. And it's made to be that way, so they did the ending perfectly. At the end of the movie, Tom Holland's character is hitchhiking back to anywhere. He wants to just go. And he gets in this van, this Volkswagen, with a guy who looks a lot like Charles Manson. And I was like thinking the whole time I was like thinking about the dates, you know, what date it's at and stuff, and I was trying to think, and I was like, dang, that could have been Charles Manson. And like Tom Holland's character slowly falling asleep, and I'm like, something bad's gonna happen when he falls asleep. But the movie just ends, and it's supposed to be on a high note. Even you're supposed to expect him to like be self-destructive or something, but it could be Charles Manson. Is, you know, it alludes to that. Here's another cool fun fact. Another cool fun fact for you guys. During a scene in a movie, one of the preachers who ends up dying. Spoilers. He dumps spiders on his head, you know, trying to show that God and the Lord is there. And he got over his sphere of spiders, and you know, and he can dump spiders on his face. Those were real spiders he dumped on him. Those were real orb-weaving spiders that he dumped all over his face. It was a bunch. It was a bunch of spiders. He just dumped them all on his head. Another cool fun fact was Chris Evans, right? Or Hemsworth. No, yeah. Okay, another cool fun fact. Chris Evans was originally going to play the sheriff. He had to drop out due to some scheduling conflicts. Wouldn't that have been crazy? He had Chris Evans in this too? What? I think he would have done good, but it would have been hard to see him as that sheriff, to be honest. Here's a weird thing for Netflix. This whole movie was shot on 35mm film. That's strange for Netflix to be filming on. Just a heads up. And the last fun fact that I have for you guys is the person who wrote the story, the screenplay or whatever, he is the one actually doing the voiceovers, which is really cool. It's the first time he ever did voiceover work, and he didn't even do it for the like reading of his books, the audiobooks or whatever. So that's cool. Alright, you guys. So here we go. We're gonna wrap this up. Now I want to give this some movie reviews. You know, the 1 through 5 rating that we do here on during our Geek Squad movie reviews. I really thought this was going to be a late night spookies. I misjudged the movie when I went to watch it. So I originally thought it was going to be a horror movie. It wasn't. It was a thriller. But should I still rate it in spooks? Or should I rate it in dopeness? Either way. Let's go with, I gotta give this movie a solid, you know, 4, if not 5. Now the reason I'm not going to go all the way to 5 out of 5, let's say 4.5. The reason I'm not going to go all the way up is because this movie isn't going to be for everyone. It is rated R, so not everyone can watch it, obviously, like most horror movies. But at the same time, it also delves into some serious topics that I don't know everyone can handle, with, you know, child molestation and underage consensual sex, but it's still rape. Let's be honest. With that and like. With flashbacks to war and you know, some people can't handle the like serious death. Like a lot of people can watch like horror movie death, like, oh, it's so cheesy, but it really hits deep. Some people can't handle the serial killers, like picking strangers up. Some people can't handle, you know, the emotional loss of losing someone close to you with cancer, or losing, you know, someone close to you due to suicide. All these things are in this movie, and they're all very, very hard things to deal with, and they give people a lot of trauma. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that everyone can handle those things. So I want to give everyone a fair warning that this movie is not for everyone. It's an amazing movie, and it deserves to be watched. Just watch it at your own risk, please. So yeah, just watch it at your own risk. Be careful. But enjoy the movie, you guys. Love you, squad. Peace out.